third panel discussion, everyone, on the topic corporate governance and compliance, navigating regulatory challenges. For this, I would like to welcome on stage the moderator of this panel, Mr. Arpinder Singh, Global Markets and India Leader at EY Forensic and Integrity Services. Mr. Arpinder Singh, everyone. Please have a huge round of applause. Our second panelist, Mr. Srijit Mukherjee, Director Legal at HCL Technologies Limited. Please have a huge round of applause for him, everyone. Our third panelist, Mr. Gambhir, Vice President and Company Secretary at DCM Shriram Limited. A huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And last and fourth panelist, Mr. Kaushik Mukherjee, President, Legal at Indiabulls Housing Finance Limited. A huge round of applause for all our panelists.
Thank you so much. I think we'll start because I think we are the last session before lunch. I can tell you, hopefully, the panel is interesting.
Better than the one after lunch.
Okay.
Certainly. I mean, I've done a lot of these, sorry to cut you, but I've done a lot of these sessions right after lunch, and that's a disaster.
Okay. So we'll take Kaushik's view on that. But coming to it, I think we have a very good panel today. As you can see, you have lawyers with a lot of experience from different sectors. You've got Kaushik from Indiabulls Housing. You've got Samit, who's from DCM Shriram, which is more traditional, more conventional. Then you've got Srijit, who's worked at HCL Technologies, which is a large, obviously, tech powerhouse in India. So I think it's good is we've got different industries. And I think we can maybe get a different perspective from all of these sections. Today, we're going to pretty much cover compliance and governance. And I'll put the first question to Kaushik. So Kaushik, given the current conflicts across the corporate landscape, organizations often struggle to create a balance between the different dynamics of the stakeholders and shareholders. And I know that's an area which is very close to your heart. So if you can just explain that in the light of corporate governance and compliance, I think that'd be a good start to the session.
Sure. Thanks a lot for that. And thank you guys for getting me here. So let's just dive straight into the question. So it has been a perennial question in corporate governance actually that should we go with a profit maximization for the stakeholders, shareholders specifically, approach, or should we, which is actually between the 80s and the 90s, that was generally the approach to corporate governance is, try and maximize profits, do your best for the company, return value to your shareholders in the short run, without maybe not that much of thought in relation to the long run. However, that traditional approach has slowly but surely, there is a move towards creating a organization that is looking to actually maximize the value for all its stakeholders and not just the shareholders in the short run, but sort of inculcate a culture in which there is more transparency and there is a long-term and gradual approach. So what this does is, and what we've traditionally seen in the past, that has been replaced by now a full governance framework, which also I've had the good fortune of seeing it evolve over the years. And I can tell you, I mean this is a question open for any one of you to also come up with your views if you would really like to do so. But I think that the better approach is an approach in which the laws are tailored in such a way that governance is transparent, that there is good governance, there is sort of responsibility for the decisions that are being made, there is a process in place, which sort of, what it does is it mitigates your tendency of taking decisions which we misfire in the long run. The idea is to make gradual progress instead of doing it all in a day.
So just not to put you on the spot, Kaushik, can you explain this in light of one or two instances which has been happening in the market? A lot of this stakeholder disputes are very evident in the newspapers. Yeah, can you give one or two examples?
Yeah, so of course, what everyone I think has been reading about the Byju's sort of situation that is currently, that has evolved. And, ultimately it led to a ouster of, of the promoter, controlling person in control. Of course, promoter is more Indian concept. It's internationally understood as the person in control. So perhaps and this is what we have seen in a lot of these examples, is that the interest of the controlling shareholder or promoter, as you would like to put it, and the interests of the long-term interests of the company may be divergent at some stage, which is what is now leading for lenders, for other stakeholders to come up and get rid of that controlling shareholder and that control and move towards a more transparent sort of a system. Byju's is one. What happened to the Z-Sony merger is another example. So I guess we are seeing instances in which governance is being there have been positive moves towards good governance. Let's put it this way.
So I think that's a great point raised by Kaushik. I'll just add one point to it. Based on all our experiences in forensic, I can tell you it's always getting a lawyer who hasn't drafted a good contract at the time when an investment has gone in, which leads to a lot of work for us. So my request is you continue to draft bad agreements. It's good for my business. Because there's always some dispute or there's some rush to close the M&A transaction, and the business people put more pressure on the legal team. You get a contract which hasn't got all the right terms and conditions. We really have a lot of fun with those type of contracts because it leads to arbitration, as was mentioned in the earlier session, and it leads to a lot of forensic activity. In fact, we find now in forensic activity, when the private equity is invested in a company, we sometimes don't even get access to the company because the contract is so badly written. That means that the shareholder has no authority at all to get access to the company, which we saw in the EdTech company which was referred to earlier. And I think in some cases they don't even ask for board seats. But then 2 years later they're crying about not getting the board seat. So when you're investing in a company, you have to think through all the 10 things which can go wrong. And as long as your contracts are very well drafted, the investments are done correctly, I think that's the time when you really have an upper hand. So always better to take a little bit more time and then invest rather than jumping the gun, is my personal view as a non-practicing lawyer. But I'd like to come next to Samit. One of the questions we've seen is this whole GDPR data privacy. Now the Data Privacy Act has come out. Right. It's made investigators like ours our lives miserable. In the old days we used to ask for the cell phone and start imaging it, saying, boss, what WhatsApp have you sent? Look at this text message. Then there's a lot of information. Anybody who tells you that when they take a cell phone and image it forensically, you can segregate personal and corporate information is very difficult. Humanly impossible. Okay, I'm technically telling you that. So I would say, Samit, how do you comply with data privacy in the light of new compliance and corporate governance? Over to you.
Oh, thanks, and thank you, LexTalk, for having me here. I think it's a very, it's a very ongoing debate as of now because the law is yet to be enforced, and we are still expecting the rules. And I think there's a lot of gray area, but I think the devil lies in details. Actually, this is what we are saying. And so in terms of preparation, if we really say from the in-house counsel perspective, there are many things which are still, still we are thinking that how to go about it, what will be the final rules in that. But some of the issues which as a preparation when we think is that one is the awareness and the training among the employees and the stakeholders, because India is a country of, now we understand that 1.4 billion people, and everywhere you have stakeholders, everywhere you have public dealing with the organization, and you have the data. So I think one is that training and awareness among your employees, because you can't do it alone. So compliance function cannot do definitely alone. So it has to take, it has to be a combined effort of IT, compliance, then business people, then risk, internal audit, everyone. So I think, in terms of training, awareness, it's very, very important that this is something which has come now and we have to be very careful. Everyone needs to understand this law. So this monitoring and training is very important. That's one way. The second thing is, one of the area which we were just thinking in our organization, kind of organization, like we have sugar mills and we have, agro-related businesses and all. we deal with many millions of farmers and the other people around the country. When we advise them about the good crops, we advise them about the other things. We are connected with them on the WhatsApp, we are connected with them on the SMS messages. We tell them about the crops, we give them ideas, and then there are a couple of interaction we do and to help them, not only for our sugar mills related farmers but other agro products also. So we have millions of data for the farmers and all in the rural areas. So one obviously the challenge area would be that how do we take the consent of all these people? How do we make aware all these people? How do we tell them that this is now is the requirement that we have your data, we have to take your consent, and then to make them aware of all the things. So this is a massive kind of a preparation we need to do for all these things. Then thereafter, there's nothing which is provided. As of now, there is nothing which is there, but of course the rules will tell that, when to report the breach, where the certain guidelines are already there, they have to, when to report the breach and other things. So there shouldn't be any overlapping or there shouldn't be some contradiction in that, I hope. And then who can be the DPO, for example, significant fiduciary, agar hum hai, to who can be the DPO, whether the CIO can be the DPO, whether the legal head can be the DPO, CRO, internal audit can be DPO, or there will be a different qualification, separate qualification for a DPO, what kind of experiences a DPI need to have, what kind of a role of people that. And then, a couple of other things like, there's a penalty, huge penalty on the violation, but what the user get, nothing, I think. The people are talking about that, if my data is stolen, my data is compromised, what do I get actually, So there are many challenges which we are debating in our perspective, and of course, till the time the rule comes in, there's a lot of issues which will be settled, I think, once the rules come in, and I think there will be a lot of help for the technology, and AI will be required in these areas, and so a lot of IT work will be there, definitely, no doubt about that. But I think from that perspective, people have started preparing. Well, we are even thinking, preparing for the case laws, like on the basis of GDPR. We're taking instances from the GDPR and telling people that this is what has happened in the GDPR scenario, so you should be better prepared for that, and which can happen to you once the rules come and that thing. So I think a lot of work to be done, frankly.
So one thing is for sure, just to sort of give another perspective to what is being said here, is that if you have contracts, all of them will have to be rewritten, and you will have to basically get those contractual consents upfront.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're in for trouble. Now that is for the prospective ones. Now what happens to the already existing ones? Why are they going to agree to, at the middle of the course, suddenly change the contract and give consents for you to do something or not do something? Unless, the counterparty to the contract, you give them something, some incentive, something to do that. So that is going to be the challenge, really.
So I have a question to both Sumit and Kaushik, as they seem to know a lot about data privacy. Without the rules coming out, do people still have to comply with the act?
I don't think it's in effect.
It's not notified.
It's not notified yet.
That's what I thought. I wanted to mention the RBI has notified it for the banks.
Okay.
So based on the industries you work in, I feel it's been notified in different sectors, even though the rules have not come out. So at least my non-legal view is that though the rules are not there, at least in some
You have to start looking at your processes, yeah.
Absolutely.
We've already started. I can tell you we started about 3-4 months back.
Right.
And I think, people will have to take steps. So I think...
Preparation was in full swing, actually, because we know a lot of things is to be taken care in that.
We haven't heard from you, Sumit, so that's why we were curious. We thought you'll get in touch with EY.
Are you from EY?
I'm joking. But so let's go to Srijit. He's been waiting on the side to quickly get into this whole technology discussion. So obviously, Srijit, if you want to add something to data privacy, obviously being HCL, you've always complied with GDPR, I assume, before even the Data Privacy Act. But talk to me a little bit about the data privacy as well as the ethical use of AI. I'm sure you create a lot of software for your clients. And what is AI? Responsible AI is a concept I keep hearing. I don't know much about it. So I'd love to hear from you.
Sure, Arpinder, and thank you so much, LexTalk, for inviting me. In a jiffy, of course. I wasn't the original plan, but having,
You'll have to keep it.
Okay, so AI is something which is, at the heart of most of the organizations now, specifically the technology-based organizations like HCLs, IBMs, and Accentures of the world. So it's still at a very nascent stage, what I would say, Arpinder, and we have to do a lot of things, and a lot of processes needs to be put in place. A lot of thought process needs to be given to the fact that the AI, generative AI, could be actually implemented effectively and efficiently in an organization. I would, from the practical perspective, what I have sensed in my organization, of course, there are certain nuances which needs to be taken care of. The first and foremost important nuance is, of course, the biasness towards data. What kind of data sets or what kind of data subjects actually are we using in order to improvise on the AI mechanism or AI platform that we already have. So there is definitely some kind of a biasness towards data. Data cannot be uniform across the subjects or across the geographies or wherever we are talking about. Even the algorithms that is being used to generate those AI and the outcomes of the AI needs to be looked into from the curation perspective. It needs to be curated to effectively apply to specific sectors or specific stakeholders for that matter. One important aspect is, of course, the privacy concerns. Now, AI, as we all know, that uses a lot of and relies on a lot of personal data and confidential data of organizations. So what happens to the privacy concerns? What happens to the data that is being used by AI to generate the outcomes? So these things are to be looked into from a pragmatic and control perspective in order to make full use of generative AI in any organization. That's my personal thought process, and with this thought process, I do try to implement the AI techniques in my legal function as well. So we are in the process of automating, the first cut review of contracts using AI. Now that needs to be, the bottom line is that what I feel is that in order to make AI work efficiently and effectively, you have to make that AI intelligent. And that is a manual effort that needs to be put in, in order to make that work effectively. Apart from that, I think there would be concerns around the regulatory requirements and the compliance requirements around use of AI, and of course clubbed with the GDPR thing, which is now coming up. So I think holistically, if we have to look into all these factors, the crux of the entire implementation mechanism of AI in any organization is to basically address the factors of data biasness, algorithm biasness, privacy concerns, regulatory and legal compliance that needs to be put in place, and the explainability factor as well. So AI flushes out decisions. Now, how far are those decisions explainable to the person who is actually driving the outcomes of that AI, who is going to use that outcome from the AI? So those have to be backed by solid rationale and solid reasoning, rather than just a robot, flushing out outcomes or flushing out details in an input-output mechanism.
I think very well put, Shridit. I think one question I've always got on AI, because the AI requires data, right?
Correct.
Suppose if you've used a lot of data at HCL of employees to build a legal tool or third party, then that third party says, I want to withdraw my consent. And that information has been used to build an application. Will you redo the whole application now because I've withdrawn my consent? It's a tactical question, but I would love to.
I think it's a technical question as well, because the app or the tool must have that functionality of removing the related data when a person or an organization withdraws its consent for the data that needs to be used for processing activities. It's more of a technical part, but then yes, when we develop a tool for a customer or when we develop a tool for our in-house use as well, we do factor in the 8 principles of GDPR that are in place. In case the consent is withdrawn by any of the users, then there should be a functionality where we can actually restrict the usage of that data or that particular specific user's data.
Okay, thank you so much, Shrijit. One thing I'd like to just mention for the audience, somebody showed this to me in my team last week, that there's a fantastic responsible AI kind of sample policy on the Niti Aayog website. So if any of you are struggling to figure out what is the right responsible AI policy, the government has already come out with one, good one to look at. I give it to all my clients and charge them 5 lakhs each, so it's good document. So let's come to And that's not what lawyers do, right? They don't copy paste. But anyway,
I just want to ask that lady, because you're saying that RBI has given some instruction to banks. Okay. So is that to all NBFCs also, to RBI? Because I'm not aware of it. Yeah. Correct, because I'm not aware of it.
okay.
And advisory basically for DP Act or otherwise data protection as per se?
Email is put out telling that that bank should follow the guidelines under DPDP Act. This is the only simple advisory given. It's not a notification. Implementing. That's all. It's not a notification. Based on that advisory, I think IBA also issued some mail advisory to banks. It's not a notification issued by RBI nor by IBA.
And to other NBFCs also, or only for the banks?
It's only for banks.
No, I don't think anything has come for the NBFCs, but see, I guess it just goes with that whole process that it'll take some time for you to make the switch, and for the banks, considering how huge their databases of customer information would be. So I think
the moral of the story is start the journey. The journey will take a long time.
it will.
And I think everybody's kind of started the building blocks because it'll slowly happen. We don't want a situation like one of the fintech companies where RBI comes, does an audit, and which was my next question to Kaushik actually. So Kaushik is in the hot seat because he's the only one from NHP/NBFC, whatever the legal thing is. I'm not the FS expert, but Kaushik, a lot of regulatory pressure on the financial services industry. I think one of your peers is in the newspaper on a daily basis. Question is with RBI, NHP, SEBI, IRDA, there's so much guidance coming out on compliance. One is, how do you keep up to date with it? That's my first question. But as a follow-up to it, the whole SEBI LODR requirement, a lot of financial services companies are also listed. How do you, as a legal head, keep up to date with disclosures, make sure they're adequate, not delayed? And we now know compliance can have a significant impact on business. So your thoughts?
So, so there has been, this company has been around for a while, so there are processes in place, right? I mean, it is only incremental stuff that comes up that you have to analyze, and at the end of the day, there is a whole team that works on these changes as they come out, and then ultimately it is taken to legal, and there is a whole interpretation done, which may actually affect your policy. Your internal policies and your internal processes in place, it may affect that. So there is a whole there has to be a whole process in place to do this analysis from when the change comes about. I think as Arpinder rightly mentioned, that there are multiple regulators. It is not always easy to keep track of everything that happens. So unless, and especially for larger listed companies who are also in the finance. So the finance sector, and I used to be with a law firm in international law, US law firm in London for many years, and basically what I can tell you is that unless these processes are placed, and that is the same everywhere, you will falter. And financial services is regulated everywhere in the world, whether that is in the UK or under FISMA, or basically in the US or wherever it is, financial, and in India, of course, with the RBI, which is actually a very proactive, which has become a very proactive regulator, and more proactive over the years that I've seen. So there is no option. You cannot non-comply. You should analyze changes as they come in and have specific teams within the organization. So there will be some that deal with SEBI, some that deal with the RBI aspect. Additionally, there's NHP. Now, even for housing companies, the RBI directions as they came in 2019 is actually the mothership, so as to say, the prudential norms. apply for housing finance companies as well, which are under NHP, under the NHP umbrella. So all of these, it is a challenge, but what is the choice, Arpinder?
I think my biggest thing to most companies 10 years back used to be that do you have any fraud in your company? And that time people used to say there's no fraud in our company. That part we kind of crossed over, a few years back, where people at least started saying we have fraud, because I used to always go to my statutory auditor, which also is part of EY, and say, this company says there's no fraud, so I think we should do more work because I think this is high risk. When anybody tells you I have no fraud in me, I would definitely do more there. Same with, I think, regulations. I think the latest news has shown that people always thought compliance should be understaffed, compliance should not be invested in. But that circle, I think a lot of companies, and this is my personal view, obviously larger companies will spend a lot on compliance. There are some companies which may not. And I think the lesson learned is compliance can really impact your business. So be cautious, especially in a regulated industry. That you have to be ultra conscious in that sense. Sorry, you were saying something?
So the margin for error is the thresholds are very low.
Right.
So unless you're on the ball, clearly, you'll be in trouble.
Yeah.
And also the important thing for all, the legal counsel and particularly the youngster, I always tell them, is the compliance or the legal guys. The first thing you have to understand your business, before you because particularly when you are in conglomerate and when you are a big organization, unless and until you understand your business well, it will be very difficult for you to manage the compliances, to identify the risk and all. So I think first few months or first few years, I think everyone has to really, really understand the business, the nuances of the business, talk to the people, interact with the business people. I mean, somehow, somewhere we see that, oh, it's my job, yaar. Mere ko apna legal ka dekhna hai. I don't care what is happening there. No, but I need to be careful that mera kaam theek hai. But I think gone are those days now. But you have to be really on the top of every business, and you need to understand the things and nuances of the business.
See, on something very interesting that you touched upon is that the role of legal or general counsel or head of legal, the terminology differs from organization to organization, but the position is more or less the same, whatever you may call it. That role has significantly expanded over the years. So clearly you can't just say that, this is only this little bit is all that I will do. Some cases which are getting litigated, I will sort of go and liaise with the solicitor and the senior counsel and get this done, and that's the sum total of all that I do. That has significantly changed. There is no scope for that.
एक चीज़ ज़रूर मैं बोलूँगा कि everyone tells us that you are a business enabler now. Legal counsel are the business enabler. And of course we need to understand the business. Everyone need to understand the business. Then only you can do the real compliance or the legal thing. But we don't have to forget that we are paid only for our risk management or compliance or legal duty. Tomorrow, if something happens in the pressure of business, you're doing something. Enabling business is a different thing, but under the pressure of business or something, if you're doing, tomorrow the thing will fall back to you only. So one has to be very clear distinction in between that,
Yeah, so basically the role is one of being a watchdog and sort of ensuring that everything is in order. That is the primary job.
I think it's not just the watchdog part, Kaushik. It's something more to it as well. When you identify certain elements as being a watchdog, you also have to, advise the management on the solution part of it as well.
No, of course. I mean, that goes hand in hand, but at the same time, so there are always these two buckets. Ones that are solvable, ones that are not solvable have to be rejected. So, yeah, I mean, that's part of the process.
Absolutely. Agree.
So this is a perfect example, my panel. When I do a compliance panel with MBAs and CAs, they follow all my rules. When I'm doing it with lawyers, they don't follow any process. But they say the right thing, that we must follow the process. I'm joking. But coming back to, Samit, one question. There's obviously this whole concept of ESG. Everyone's talking about sustainability also as a compliance. So I think compliance just keeps expanding itself. I feel every year there's a new compliance which comes up, which is kind of there. Now you have ESG compliance. So there's something called the Advertising Standards Council of India, which came out with a greenwashing to prevent greenwashing. So greenwashing, for everybody's knowledge, does everybody know what greenwashing is? How many raise of hands? Lawyers? Everybody should know about it. But anyway, greenwashing is where basically you misrepresent the facts. ESG facts sometimes don't come from the books of accounts, right? They come from what you're doing in social responsibility. And obviously greenwashing is something in India, the ESG journey has just started. So obviously greenwashing is a new policy which came out, which was very interesting for me, that a government body would actually, or a public body would actually come out with a standard saying this is what we do against greenwashing. So maybe Samit, what is your company doing around ESG compliance, CSR compliance, as you work a lot with farmers and you're right in the middle of it?
So I think you have touched a very, very valid point, because that's a hot topic today. And I think in listed entities particularly, we have this BRSR report, which is nothing but an Indian ESG. I think ESG is something which is going to stay here and which has, it has an impact actually. It's not at a global level, but a national level, government level, organization level, even individual level. I will say that it has to start from individual level also. You and I also understand that, for sustainable things, we have to change our habits, we have to keep our habits, we have to monitor our day-to-day habits, that, we are contributing or not. But I think from the corporate perspective, I would say that there is a lot of compliances now. If we're talking about ESG in India compliance, for listed entity, it is BRSR, which is by the SEBI. And SEBI has really, given a detailed report now, and recently they were amended also. They have included a lot of things based on the 9 principles. And, wherein you have to give the data. Now, they are also coming up with BRSR core. They have come up with core means, you have to give the KPIs also. And then at the same time, you have to see your channel partners, upside, downside, how they are doing this kind of a thing. So I think compliance of BRSR or compliance of ESG is actually very, very critical thing in organizations, and definitely it has to start from a board level or a committee level, because unless and until this is taken seriously at the board level, it's not going to happen. Plus, as a general counsel, or as an in-house counsel, or as a legal guy, our role is definitely for the greenwashing, what I'm saying, because एक race लग गई है ESG में ना. Everyone is trying to put the data, and because you have your data in public domain and organizations are ranking you, giving you rating on the basis of your public domain data. So now everyone wants to give very, rosy picture in those BRSR report and then people. So that's where the role of governance and compliance comes into the picture, that the report has to be reviewed by the legal counsel and to the board of directors, and most of the companies have ESG committees also now. Otherwise, we have risk management committee, for example. So it's your responsibility to see that there's nothing called as greenwashing, nothing called as a misrepresentation which you are giving, because that's very detrimental. One is that, and greenwashing means, you are misrepresenting something which is, and at the same time, SEBI is also very proactive now, I'm telling you. I was reading somewhere that US में SEC ने task force बनाई है to catch hold the greenwashing in the reports actually, and they have caught certain people also. So one has to be very careful that it carries a lot of risk in case you are giving any misrepresentation or giving any false report in your ESG or BRSR data. So greenwashing has to go. And interestingly, the point you raised, Arpinder, is that ASCI wala. That's very interesting. I was also surprised to see that last month, I think ASCI came out with the guidelines. No greenwashing in the advertisements, etc., etc. And very, very interesting. What happens is people used to tell you, yeah, at your own level, what are you doing? I am investing in ESG funds so that, I can do my bit. So people say, even if I can't do anything, I am buying something which is eco-friendly. I am buying something which is, ESG or something like that. Now one has to really see that the advertisers who are advertising, this is an eco-friendly product, this is a green product, this has used less carbon, this has used less pollution. You have to be substantiate with that. You can't claim that in your advertisement. That's what and ASCI के ruling को Supreme Court ने भी कई बार बोला है कि yes, you have to apply for that. So I think that's very important for all of us to understand. एक डाबर का केस था शायद किसी health drink का, आपको remember होगा, everyone should know that, Vita, Dabur Vita. It's a very popular case wherein they said that no other drinks prevents the immunity like this. That means you're saying that no other drink in the market is good as the Dabur's drink, which I'm saying. So उसमें वो काफ़ी issues होते थे, but ये जो green washing वाला आया, that's very, very relevant, very important. Now everyone has to be very careful, and as a compliance officer or compliance person, you need to sit down with your communication team, with your brand team, marketing team. You need to understand that no such claim is being in the, And even if you're talking about the emission mera low ho raha hai isme, then you have to prove that, you know, within 2 years or more than 2 years. If it is more, less than 2 years, then it's okay. So everything has to be clear, to be backed by everything, otherwise there'll be challenge and there'll be inquiries about the ASCI, and ASCI has full power nowadays. Actually, though it's a voluntary self-regulated organization, but has got a lot of powers in terms of, you know, because it got a lot of recognition in various cases. So this is a very welcome step by ASCI, I think, because everyone need to understand, आज की डेट में मार्केट में आप जाओ, ग्रीन प्रोडक्ट और ऑर्गेनिक के नाम पर दुनिया प्रीमियम लेकर के बेच रही है आपको, एंड यू आर बाइंग इट. Oh, it's a green one, it's an organic one, it's a less pollution one, it's this one, that one. And I'm saying, oh, I'm doing my bit at least for the sustainability. But that's not true, it's not happening. So I think this is very, very important, very relevant guideline issued by them, and I think everyone should follow that.
And I think just to add to what Samit said, I mean, from the non-advertisements perspective, even when we, as an IT company, when we see our transactions with our clients and customers, they are also quite, you know, worried about the ESG compliances by organizations, by service providers. They have now started putting in clauses in the contracts which actually gives them the right to terminate outrightly in case there are any greenwashing kind of activities.
So and also this is, you know, when you're talking about the channel partners, SEBI has smartly done it. You know, indirectly it is applicable to all MSMEs kind of a thing and other private limited companies also. Because tomorrow you have to take a confirmation from your upside or downside channel partners or vendors or customers that you are actually complying with all those things. Or you at least collect their data and you try to understand that what they are doing. Now be careful that when you have to do business with a listed entity, you better be careful, because unless you are doing all these compliances, you are not taking care of all these things, listed company may terminate your contract also. So this is absolutely, you know, and it's not going to go actually, and it's important also according to me.
I think that brings up a very good question. Smith said is about signing contracts. You know, you could be a large company signing a contract with a larger company, or you could be a small mid-sized company signing a contract with a large company. Everybody is now putting ESG clauses very smartly into the contracts. You are, without looking at it, saying yes. But when they come to audit you, don't cry when your contract is blacklisted, because then the market knows you were blacklisted, and very few companies will then onboard you because you are a blacklisted ESG company. That means a company which has violated ESG norms. So be very careful as big companies force these ESG norms down your throat. If you are not ready for it, you should be candid about it, I feel. Because I'm finding very serious repercussions, and it can really impact you if you sign these contracts. Srijit, coming to me, I know we're coming to the end of our session. A little bit about, you know, you use a lot of technology for legal tech. Any thoughts on the future of using technology for compliance and legal? Is the world evolving? So your thoughts on that, and then I have another question for you, but you can start with that.
Sure. Definitely technology adoption is one of the priorities of organizations, and more so an IT organization. So we, on a regular and routine basis, we do look for adoption of technologies where we can make lives of our employees easier. From the compliance perspective, yes, since we are present in 60 plus global countries now, definitely we have centralized systems which are driven by technology, hybrid model of technology and manual intervention to manage, you know, the compliance requirements of various countries where we are present. We are slowly moving towards automating some bit of it, also taking the assistance from experts available in the market, the third-party service providers who are available in the market, in order to, you know, monitor in a routine manner what changes are happening at the regulatory and legal compliance level in various geographies that we operate in, identify those changes, and then you know, try to recommend ways how do we make ourselves as an organization compliant with the requirements that are in the specific geographies. So that's how we are adopting the technology slowly, and we aspire to not to replace manual efforts by technology in the future, but yes, just to complement the manual efforts and just to ease the lives of our legal team.
And just one more question on that only. When you operate in so many 50 plus or 80 plus countries, how can you centrally manage the law? You know, India, I thought all the lawyers are common law, whatever. And how do you comply with US laws and Swedish laws and UK laws sitting out of India?
So
is that difficult?
It's not sitting out of India, but we have a global legal team. So
Right.
we have regional lawyers also who are operating in various geographies. So we take the support and you know, assistance from them also in order to understand what are the legal requirements. Because my organization is headquartered in India, so it's driven from India. But again, with the assistance of the regional lawyers and also external law firms at times if we need to.
Okay, no, thanks for that, Shriram. Now, coming to my end because it's 1:05. So, last question is, starting with Kaushik, what advice would you give legal and compliance professionals? Would you say they should upgrade their knowledge around technology, around AI, some of the common risks? You have new regulations coming up which are non-technical. You have technology coming out, AI. I think some of us should go back to school, maybe. I don't know. Your thoughts, Kaushik?
So I guess it's just in keeping with the times, Arpinder. And so, see, it differs from industry to industry. In the industry that I work, which is mortgage lending, so technology and AI doesn't have too much scope in terms of fraud detection. Ultimately, it is all of it is secured by property. Property has to be, there is a process, manual process that has to be undertaken before any loan is disbursed actually. And that involves a title check, a title verification, physical verification of the property, valuation undertaken of the property. So basically, I guess it is the business that you're in. In mine, Arpinder, there is not that much scope. But for these guys, for instance, HCL and I don't know about DCM and your business and whether it actually affects in a long way. But if so I would say that if you're doing small tickets in an NBFC kind of a situation, if you're giving small ticket size loans, personal loan type of products, so there has been a lot of advancement in which AI has actually come in, helped in detecting fraud. People have upgraded their systems, and they are largely driven by all of these technology-driven processes which actually help them. And then, of course, legal takes its course, which go hand in hand. But the whole detection system, the whole system of origination, which is on an automated level. Now, we say that our home loans are also automated. End-to-end you can do in your phone or in your computer or whatever. That is just not true. There is a whole other process that needs to be happen once you've submitted all the data. So there is only that much you can do in our industry, but there are others that I keep hearing in these conferences and in other places that it's significantly impacted their lives.
So I know the lady's there as a monitor, but maybe ma'am you can give us 1 minute more so I can go through Sameet and Srijit.
Sure, sir, sure.
So Sameet and Srijit, last comments from your end, if you don't mind, one by one.
So I think, definitely we need an automation. So we have done automation in all the compliances because we don't have much international compliances except few. But for our all businesses, like we have 8-9 businesses in India, all around the pan India. So we have done the automation. We have taken this tool from a third party also. We are, very well monitoring that. Every business people, we have done a lot of exercise. I think 2 years have gone to tell the business people, explain them about the compliances, how does it work, what kind of a systems, what kind of a things will be required, and then how to, then there are, because as a company secretary I have to submit the compliance certificate to the board every quarter also. It's my responsibility directly, to understand also. So we have actually taken a tool, we are doing it automated, and we are also, in terms of insider trading also, not only statutory compliances, but SEBI related compliances and other related compliances, we are actually working on a tool, and these are actually doing very fine, frankly. And there's a requirement. I think everyone needs to later or sooner adopt the technology for compliances. That's
sorry, if I could just, that is really interesting. So, is it like a database that you keep and of all employees with trading data, or how do you do this with?
No, I'm talking about the statutory compliance as of now.
Okay. So filing your form. Okay.
No, not only that, but all the industry-related compliances and all.
No, insider specifically. You said insider.
Insider, yes. Insider, there's another tool we have taken. Okay, you're talking about the insider. Yeah. Insider, yes. It's very difficult because you have to identify 400, 500, who are the people, designated person in your company. Correct. So take the data of all the designated person. That's a requirement, and every year, and then whenever there is a change, you have to disclose your name, your family name, your PAN number, your number of shares in the organization. That is put in the database, and then every week you monitor it, and then if there is any
there's
changes.
a SEBI law now. So basically, I've been 20 years part of various law firms. This was my practice area. So basically, you have to maintain a database now. especially around transactions and material events, that database has to be strictly maintained with all of this
Yeah.
data. And yeah.
अभी तो मतलब
So-
even if it is not, if it is a UPSI, not even gone to the publics, you are discussing something, you have to maintain a data bank now, database, which cannot be tempered at all, you know, with the timestamp and everything.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Sameet. Maybe Srijit, last comments.
I think few last comments would be, I would definitely resonate with the fact that adoption of automation, AI is definitely the word and requirement for the day. But then we as an organization believe in the philosophy that, we should be susceptible to, bespoke adoption of AI, if I have to put it that way. Possibly targeting those tasks where, specifically from the legal team's perspective, those tasks where there is minimal application of mind of a lawyer, we might look at automating those parts of the process flow, so that the lawyers can actually focus more on their core competencies, where they apply their mind and add value to an organization. So with this in mind, slowly we are moving towards adopting AI and automating things and
No,
tasks.
I'd like to thank my panelists before the lady actually physically throws us off the thing. But I think compliance is the future. I think lawyers have historically liked to be proud litigators, tax lawyers, but I think compliance is the future. So my recommendation, all of you spend more time on compliance. It's good. It's good business. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen, for putting up such an interesting session. A huge round of applause for all the panelists over here.